A slave boy named Julian sneaks aboard a ship bound for the continent, hoping to find a better life. When he is discovered, the crew debates his fate. With food already limited for the sailors and 100 slaves, there is no reason to keep him alive. But a pregnant slave named Myra steps forward and offers part of her own rations to save him. Others follow her lead, and Julian is reluctantly accepted as slave number 101. During the journey, Myra later asks him why he boarded the ship. Julian answers that the continent simply offers more opportunities than his current life. When Julian asks why she helped him, Myra says that kindness helps people preserve their pride as human beings. She shows him a small rusty dagger. Julian offers to polish it, revealing that he was once sold to a blacksmith as a child, a man he eventually killed with a rock. He admits he has never known compassion, not even from his own mother. That night, Myra introduces herself properly. As days pass, Julian notices Myra singing under the stars. He asks about her baby, and she says she will do anything to ensure it is born safely once they reach the continent. Her words overwhelm Julian, triggering a panic attack as he realizes he has never experienced that kind of love. Myra comforts him with an embrace, telling him that kindness and love still exist. From that moment, Julian begins helping her with her work, despite being punished by the crew for it. Still, he insists she rest. Later, Myra reveals a painful truth. She once had another child, a son who died protecting her and the baby she now carries. She now feels responsible for ensuring this child survives. Julian comforts her in return, telling her that the baby will be happy. One night, Myra asks if they ever become free, would he live with her? Julian says he will think about it, but the ship soon enters dangerous waters. The captain decides to lighten the load by killing the weak. Children, the elderly, and pregnant women included. The slaves try to protect Julian and Myra, resisting the massacre. At that moment, a monstrous sea creature appears. It declares that to receive its blessing, 2 conditions must be met. A large number of souls must be sacrificed, and a pure love must be offered. It presents Julian and Myra with a choice. One must die, and the other will receive the power. Julian immediately volunteers to sacrifice himself, but Myra refuses. She reveals she has already lost one child protecting her and will not lose another person she loves. In a desperate act, Myra performs a cesarean section on herself with the dagger, delivering her baby girl. She names her Diana and entrusts her to Julian before falling into the sea. The creature declares the sacrifice complete. Julian demands proof that these deaths were not meaningless. In response, dark markings spread across his body as he receives the power of 100 lives. He gains strength, speed, endurance, reflexes, and life force from the sacrificed slaves. In an instant, he kills the captain and then the remaining crew. When Julian walks toward the baby, the captain stabs him in the neck, but Julian remains alive. Why? The monster tells him it should be obvious. He now has 100 lives. Julian finishes off the captain. The monster destroys the ship and tells Julian that since he offered something he loved to the sea, it will not bear its fangs at him. The monster says that the boat will take him directly to land. The baby cries in his arms. Julian looks at Diana and realizes that, for the first time in his life, he has something truly precious to protect. The story picks back up with Julian remembering Myra, his adoptive mother. Just after that memory fades, he finds himself on a small boat with his new little sister, Diana, staring at the wreckage of the massive ship. Suddenly, hundreds of murloc heads begin surfacing from the water. Then another sea monster appears. Completely furious, he calls Julian unacceptable, a pathetic creature, and declares that it's going to devour him. With a quick leap, Julian gets himself and Diana out of immediate danger from the massive murloc horde. He even starts getting a little cocky, convinced that he's finally safe. But he couldn't be more wrong. A giant eye suddenly appears, calling him arrogant and informing him that its army is tearing the ship apart and that they are about to devour its baby. Hearing this, Julian remembers everyone who sacrificed their lives for him and activates his bizarre power. Grabbing a wooden stake, he dives straight into the water and charges toward the giant eye, only to discover that the eye belongs to an enormous sea serpent. With his sense of reality completely distorted, Julian launches himself at the giant serpent, stabbing it over and over again. But the monster doesn't hold back, strikes back immediately, piercing his stomach and narrowly missing his neck. The serpent then attempts to swallow him whole, but Julian spins his body at the last second and narrowly dodges the attack. He retaliates with a slash, but the serpent avoids it and counterattacks with its stingers, dealing devastating damage. Julian quickly realizes that he can't keep up with the serpent's speed, so he grabs one of its stingers and, using incredible strength, manages to carve a massive wound into the creature. The serpent lets out a scream of agony. Then, unexpectedly, Julian begins to feel his body going numb. That's when he realizes he's been poisoned. The giant serpent tells him that it knows he has 100 lives. According to the monster, its venom will force him to die and revive over and over again until all 100 lives are gone. The serpent continues its psychological assault, telling him that the baby is nothing but a burden, that he's doomed to carry her forever, that he'll remain a slave for the rest of his existence, and that it feels sorry for the child who will be forced to grow up without her own mother. The creature keeps pushing him, trying to make him give up and die so he can finally reunite with all of his fallen friends. And with Myra, Julian suddenly experiences a flashback. He remembers his biological mother selling him for a bag of silver coins. And what hurts even more is that she didn't even bother turning around to look at him afterward. Once again, Julian remembers Myra. Then Diana suddenly starts crying. The sound snaps Julian out of his illusion. At that moment, black smoke erupts from his body. He throws a devastating punch and immediately follows up by driving his improvised spear deep into the serpent's back. The creature is left wondering how he managed to purge its venom. With a sudden burst of speed, Julian slices the serpent open from bottom to top. Then he rushes to protect his new little sister. After wiping out the remaining Murlocs, he makes a promise to Diana. No matter what happens, he will always be there for her. Barely holding himself together, Julian finally makes it to shore, where he's rescued by a spear-wielding Amazon warrior and an armored knight. The pair invite him into their home, offering both food and a place to rest. After everyone has eaten and Diana has been fed, the couple introduce themselves. Their names are Tai and Angel. Exhausted from everything that's happened, Julian tries to get some sleep. Unfortunately, Diana decides to do what babies do best, cry all night long. As a result, Julian doesn't get a single moment of sleep. Hoping to calm her down, he takes Diana for a walk in the middle of the night. That's when he runs into Angel, who is no longer wearing her armor, and Julian quickly realizes that she's absolutely a mamacita. During their conversation, Julian opens up about everything he's been through and tells her his story. After listening carefully, Angel gives him some straightforward advice. If you want to be happy and give your little sister the life she deserves, you're going to need money. As the saying goes, gold opens every door. In other words, if Julian wants a better future, he needs to start making some coin. Angel then assures him that she and Tai will take care of him until he fully recovers. As they return home for a meal, Diana suddenly notices something lurking in the shadows. Since Julian is flat broke, he decides it's time to find a job. The problem is pretty obvious. Nobody wants to hire a kid, so instead of giving him real work, they decide to test him with what they believe is an impossible task: clear the entrance of the iron mine in less than a single day. Certain that he'll fail, they send him off to work, but Julian gets straight to it. The workers are left stunned, and for the first time in a long while, Julian earns some money with his own hard work, his very first coins. Meanwhile, life slowly starts returning to normal, and Diana reaches a new milestone. The little baby has finally started crawling, and that's where this part of the story ends. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter of Centuria. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.